Okay, well, so things have changed a little, and one of the changes is that Chris has agreed just to start off by giving a little bit of a roundup of what's going on in military applications of drones.
Well, more industrial. How's that?
Okay, sure.
So, last minute, I'm not exactly sure what the panel is going to focus on. I just wanted to get a couple of concepts out. The first is that we should all know that drones, such as they are, have some serious misconceptions and misperceptions. One of them is that we're not just putting unmanned aerial vehicles out in the world, downrange in austere and hostile environments. There are a number of industrial and commercial and other types of entities that are conceiving of applications that are essentially drones. They're called autonomously guided vehicles. They're underwater unmanned vehicles. There is, for me at least, a really interesting and really scary, but a really concerning amount of effort and energy going into drones, such as it is, for all sorts of applications. Some of them are very, very small. Some of them are, as you've seen. But the concept I wanted to share with you is that when you think about drones, I would ask you not to limit your conception to only airborne, and not limit your conception to only military applications, and not limit your conception or your perception to this is an awesome piece of evidence of productivity or advancement or value. I'm not sure that we should be automating any task that we can. I'm not sure that we should be getting, quote unquote, the human out of the loop wherever we can. I'm not sure that deploying all this autonomy just because we can doesn't mean we should. And so the last thing I'd leave you with is my personal position on this, so you know, because I do have an axe, I've got an axe to grind. It is that. I think one of the greatest things we can all do as definers and developers and deployers of an Internet of Things is to focus on impact and intention and meaning, and not just automation and productivity and profitability. That if what we do doesn't enhance the quality of life for as many people as possible, if it doesn't create more opportunities for more people to have meaningful work in their lives, to create more stability for their families, I'm not sure I'm down with the revolution. And so I want to leave you with this idea that I'm up here, in many ways, hawking this opportunity. But to me, it begins and ends with people. And if your solution isn't human-centered or human-centric, or if it doesn't consider the human context or condition, I can tell you from my perspective, I'm not sure I'm going to invest and I'm not sure I'm going to advise. But I do believe there's an opportunity to put unmanned vehicles in harm's way so that we don't have to put people there. And harm's way isn't always, to break or take something. It might be to save or serve. So I'm not going to talk too much, but if you're ready to come up, I'm going to go through the deck.
The next speaker is Yanni Jacob-Turgeman, head researcher at the Sensible City Lab. I got it right. He stepped in at the absolute last minute, like 11 o'clock last night. We had a speaker got ill yesterday afternoon, and Yanni graciously agreed at some point to come down and talk about the research that he's been working on. So thank you very much.
Hi everyone. Give me just a second. Let's get the slides up. Now, how do we get rid of that note? Can we do this?
I would say no.
I think that's there.
To get like the audience. Can I do it? You want to do it? Oh,
there we go.
Okay, just to get that.
All right, great. Do we get the lights down just a bit? Not much. We don't need too much. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So, as Chris just mentioned, drones have gotten quite a rap, and in some cases, we should be very critical, and possibly that reputation is justified. However, as with any technology, it can be also inscribed with positive agendas, and so the flip side of that, and I think Chris just did a great job talking about it, so I won't get into it too much, but search and rescue, for example, how to keep people out of harm's way. And more we're seeing it enter the civic space. And as this technology quite powerful technology gets cheaper and more accessible, it's definitely something that we're going to have to contend with. It's something that we're going to have to consider. And so it's something that we feel is quite important to think about as flying robots enter our personal space. And when I say we, I'll just quickly introduce the people that are working on this project with me. First of all, I represent the Sensible City Lab. So Carlo Ratti is the director. Asaf Bitter is the associate director. I lead research. And the project I'm going to show you now is led by a researcher whose name is Chris Green. And the project is called SkyCall. And the goal really of the research at Sensible City Lab in general is looking at how our man-made environments, how our urban environments are evolving with technology, what new possibilities are there. And as opposed to smart cities, which maybe the term is familiar to many of you, we call it sensible city because we're really looking at how, sort of from the bottom up, how the agents of the city can be made smart. So as opposed to maybe smart cities, we're looking at smart citizens. And in this case, we try to see how we can empower citizens to interact with their environment in a different way. So we started, UAVs compelled us, the platform compelled us, and we started by asking quite a simple question: how can UAVs help us navigate complex environments? And I'm going to show you a little video of what we came up with over this last summer. Do we have sound, by the way? Now we will. So for those of you familiar with MIT campus, Harvard students are forever getting lost here.
Welcome to MIT. Where would you like to go? Follow me. The Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab is the largest research lab at MIT. To your right, the Media Lab. To your left, the Data Center. Follow me, please. Approaching the destination. You have arrived. Welcome to Sensible City Lab.
We lost the He trails off to the side, and there he goes. So Matt is also a researcher at the lab. And this demo we did over the summer. Oh, let's get back in there. This demo we did over the summer. Really to dip our toes into these challenges of working with flying robots, as we kind of list them here very, very broadly and very generally on this flight, perception of the environment, and really very interestingly, how they would interact with people. And in the demo you just saw, it's of course a development project, so you may be familiar that outdoor navigation is relatively a trivial challenge, while indoor navigation perception in general is far more challenging. In this demo, it was a demo, so things were working quite well some of the time. Let me tell you a little bit what we tried to do here. So you can call it over. It arrives to you and communicates to you through the speaker on your phone. And you tell it where you'd like to go. It starts navigating, and you follow it. Not look into your screen, but be able to kind of experience the surroundings. And of course, we imagine this for larger groups where you can come in, join the group. It's nice because the speakers kind of scale up. So as all the phones get synchronized, you get as people join the group and the group gets larger, so does the volume of the navigation system. you can pause it, and it has a digital leash, what we call the digital leash, where it knows where you are, and then it paces itself according to where you go. You can take pictures and video with it, and all of these nice little things. This was kind of a cool demo. It was done with the help of some Europes also over the summer. They put together a nice app. And so that's where we got to at the end of the summer. But that was really a warm-up for us. We really were quite interested in something more than that. And it was around the thought of something we kind of loosely called digital ecology, which is how these flying robots can sort of bridge the gap between the virtual and the physical world, how in our man-made environments in our cities, it could possibly contribute to the ecology between the man-made world and the natural world. And the Charles River Basin, which you may or may not know, has every summer has quite a problem with cyanobacteria blooms. So you can't go in the river for some reasons. Maybe it's not worth getting into the details, but really it's a nutrient balance problem. So when you have man-made environments and you have different nutrients entering the river from watershed, from in Boston, you have a combined sewage system, which runoff and sewage and everything can sometimes overflow into the river. Aspects. And cyanobacteria is both a problem and a symptom of other ecological problems in the river. Some recent research has actually shown that the river, and don't quote me exactly, but maybe 60 or 70% actually swimmable. It's just kind of hard to know which 60 or 70% of the time. So one of the things we imagined doing was taking these UAVs and building a swarm of them that could go and monitor the river, get real-time data. We spoke to the EPA, we spoke to a few other people, Museum of Science, City of Boston, City of Cambridge, and got into the details of this problem. I'm not going to get into it, but what's happening right now, the way they're doing it now, is that you have a gentleman who is a volunteer, and he's a fantastic guy. He's really an amazing guy. His name is Roger. And he zigzags up and down the river, collecting samples and probing for data. I think he does this depending on the time of the season, whatever else. I think he does this maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. And it's quite a stretch to cover, right? And he gets some type of data, but it's kind of low-resolution data, both spatially and temporally. And the idea here is, could we get very high-resolution data from the river, both spatially and temporally, and be able to really start to get a good picture of understanding what's going on there, and then, in turn, try to see how we can intervene. In order to do that, we are currently, this is in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 months, we've been developing 3 vehicles that work in tandem. One is an imaging vehicle. It's a hyperspectral vehicle, hyperspectral imaging vehicle, which flies at about 30 or 40 or 50 meters above the water and is able to detect where these blooms might be. Then it could direct, and it does direct, a probing vehicle, which goes and actually takes measurements from the river. And lastly, sampling vehicle. Now, this project is in development, so what you're seeing here was actually sent to me this morning by Chris. And I didn't mention, and I should mention because it's quite important, this project we're doing not only our lab, so not only Sensible City Lab, but we're doing it in collaboration with Professor Julie Shah's lab, which is the Interactive Robotics Group here at MIT, as well as the Dynamic Systems Lab in University of Toronto, which is headed by Professor Angela Scholi. And we've been working on this for the last 4 months. They just sent me some images. So this would be the application where the operator intervenes with these swarm of vehicles. And this is part of the research that we're doing here, is trying to see how an autonomous system can help us collect a lot of data and help us understand what's going on in the natural connection to the city, but also how scientists, citizens, people can sort of participate in the system and learn something about and understand and get a certain story back from that environment. And so these are just some spy shots from the latest demo. That's the hyperspectral vehicle, and this is the probe. And that's kind of where we're at right now. And so we're really looking to see maybe, hopefully this summer, and that will depend on some of the things we'll hear a little bit about from about the FAA. I think Michael's going to talk about it a little bit. So depending on that, but we're really hoping that definitely for public good type projects, this seems to be quite a powerful technology, and we're hoping to see it improve Charles River Basin as soon as the summer. Thank you.
So I just figure out how to plug this in. Lead lights. So the neat thing about having a couple of people step in at the last moment, Chris also this morning agreed to step in on this, means that, like last night, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to fill a whole half hour, but now I don't really have to do anything. So this is awesome. Thanks again. What I wanted to just briefly cover, if I can get all this set up, and we're going to go through all of this. Despite the cap, I don't actually work for DJI. I just their quadcopter. How many people are familiar with this brand of thing, which is, you can now get these for, I think they're $500, $499 or something. I think they've come down about $200 in the last 6 months or less. I have in the past flown multiple remote-controlled helicopters, and I think I've managed on average about 5 seconds of controlled flight the entire time. So when I saw the demos of this, I was kind of like, wow, they make that look really easy, but I've seen people fly remote-controlled helicopters, and that looks really easy. So I was a little skeptical, but I was amazed that, you know, this little thing, it has a little computer in there and a GPS and barometric pressure and one thing and another, and literally it did what I thought remote control helicopters should do. I would say go up, and it went up. Go left, it would go left. Go right, it would go right. And as long as I kept calm and remembered my right and my left and which way it was, I didn't crash too much. And it's still in one piece. So, you know, just from that perspective, it's awesome. And then the other thing is that what I was really interested in was getting a camera up in the air and doing some stuff with that. And, you know, these little action cams, I mean, this is actually designed for the GoPro. I have right here a Sony action cam. Both of those, you know, you can control, I don't know if you know, through Wi-Fi, you can pair it with your smartphone. And so you can see what the camera's showing you, as long as the drone is only 12 feet high. As soon as it gets beyond that, the range drops out and you can't see anymore. And this wonderful idea you had of, oh, I can see what it's doing, is completely ruined. They have fixed that by coming out with a new model called the Phantom 2, but we'll get to that. The first thing is that, well, Chris already talked about real drones, but, you know, these things have really caught on. This is a concept car that was shown that came with its own drone, which just seems a little strange. And then, you know, Kickstarter now, there are multiple projects with people building. This is a tiny little thing that is foldable and you know, takes your GoPro, and that's pretty awesome. The funny thing is, I was talking to my father, who's 83, I think it is, on Skype, and I was showing him this, and he goes, and he's in New Zealand, and he goes, oh, yeah, I saw something about this farmer and his son who's using the drone to monitor sheep. And I had a bit of laugh about that because my father was involved in farming. And the sort of joke then was that farmers would put in swimming pools and claim them off their taxes as a water reservoir. And so, you know, I seemed a little skeptical about this, using them to manage the flock, but maybe that works out. This is the Phantom 1. The Phantom 2 they just announced is about $1,000, I think, and a little over. And it has a camera embedded in it. And you can actually hook your phone up onto the remote control, and it has some sort of Wi-Fi booster. And so the signal from the camera that's put in the Phantom 2 will come down so you can actually see what you are trying to take pictures of, which, trust me, is a great advance. I actually have here, so I can show you this. This is a video that I took. Yeah, we'll take that down. So this is this quadcopter, and a friend is flying her quadcopter, and what I was trying to do was keep that one in the picture. That was all I was trying to do, and of course I can't see anything, so I'm just basically sort of trying to point it, and I didn't do too badly. One thing to remember is that these have a really wide angle field of view, so that's actually a lot closer than it appears. But it was kind of actually a fun game, so I think, a sport should be get two quadcopters and chase them all over the place. And that's enough of that. So, oops, go back to here. So DJI has come up with a much more expensive model. Here we're talking about thousands of dollars, but can lift a much heavier camera. And I showed you that. So then, I'm not going to go into it, but Amazon, did a little promotion about drones, and everyone is trying to do things. There was a company going to deliver 6 packs of beer to ice fishermen, and so the thing is, the FAA is watching you, and so if you get a story on CNN, or your video on YouTube gets lots of hits, they will probably come after you. Drones being used to hunt possums in New Zealand. Excellent. I'm going to skip this. The problem is that the FAA at the moment does not let people fly these things for commercial purposes. So they have a certain number of things limited to 400 feet, non-commercial use under 55 pounds, so you're considered a hobbyist. You've got to adhere to local and federal laws. There are lots of people who want to use these things for commercial stuff. There's a lot of people. The Martin Scorsese film, Wolf of Wall Street, I think it is, evidently they actually have some footage that was shot on a drone, allegedly, and that's not actually legal, so but people are doing it. So the FAA, what they do is they hear about it and then they send you a cease and desist letter. And we know that they've done about, I think about 30 in the last year, I think it's something. Some website had a collection of businesses that it found that admitted to getting letters like this from the FAA. The FAA, of course, is on the other end of things. They're dealing with pilots who are reporting encounters with drones. And so their perspective is this is a bad thing. And but what they're currently doing is, and people are upset, so they've started a petition on whitehouse.gov, but they've only got 1,600 things as of yesterday. So what the FAA is currently doing is that they are supposed to do new rules, which were supposed to come out in 2011. They recently named 6 test sites to look into what should be the new rules. And supposedly 2015, but I've heard people say it could be 2017 before actual rules, regulations make it through the whole sausage system. So I think that you get a drivable car, a self-driving car, before Amazon will be delivering to your door via Amazon Prime. And that's the state of things with that.
Can I use that to show a video?
You may be able to.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, sure.
There's internet in here?
Yeah, there is internet. Let me just go on here.
Everyone's showing videos, so I thought.
And I have one video to finish with.
Okay.
And so, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kade Crockford. I work with the ACLU here in Massachusetts. And I'm going to talk a little bit about privacy and the state of privacy law around drones. So drones can definitely be used to do really cool things. They can also be used to do this.
212 Longbow, initiate and engage. Protocol verified.
Confirmed. Your air mission will start immediately.
Okay, 556, break, push 20 meters.
I have 189 vehicles on the bridge. 480 civilians at this time. No malicious intent is detected.
Moonbeam copies all. Kill ROC. Proceed to waypoint. Uniform. Niner. Scope the tower.
South tower, showing minimal structural deflection. Traffic density is within predicted parameters.
Copy 212. Pull out. Push southwest to vector 18. 3535. Come back. 1 kilometer east. Go. Lurker pattern. Gate 5.
Okay, Ethan. I'll get there as fast as I can. And my weapons free?
That's a negative 212. You're in residential airspace. Lock it up. Your waypoint is charted. Your line is good. Run a duck. Radar sweep.
It is my opinion that this landmark is and will be secure for extended duration. Moving to waypoint 5.
Copy that.
I can see many urban dwellings. Would you like me to investigate any of them further?
That's a negative. Watch and wait. In effect. Hold tight and maintain lurker pattern. Next again. 2200.
Okay, Ethan.
212, check in. Interrogative. C tower. Zone status. Over.
This area remains minimally populated. 13-foot mobile within 100 meters of the tower.
Vehicular traffic.
The last vehicle departed 35 minutes ago and was carrying 3 passengers.
Moonbeam copies all. Drop to 5 meters. Neighborhood watch. Initiate. 212, I've lost the common run it back.
Based on average stress levels in the area, criminal activity is likely within the next 15 minutes.
212, we need you to pull back. Weather traffic seek mission is go and priority alpha.
That's a negative. I need to stay and patrol this area.
212, override. Jump to 500 meters and push west. Track and seek along the coast.
I'm sorry, Ethan. I cannot leave this area until the tile is neutralized. Master,
Break, 212, reset. You are notified. 6-5, we lost another one. 212, sector A2 is down. Civilian takedown, yep.
All right, so
Yeah, it's a third one, okay. Yep.
So that's a little hyperbolic, maybe, for now. But the point is to show you that, all of the sort of integrated technologies that you guys are talking about here today have real-world applications in a way that maybe might not make you feel so comfortable if you're on the receiving end of them. I don't know how many people have read recent press stories published by Glenn Greenwald about how the NSA uses metadata in what are essentially pre-crime assassinations overseas using drones. So this is a very, very technologically enhanced way of killing people. Essentially what the government is doing is analyzing metadata sets based off of cell phone communications and using that metadata to determine targets to kill. Oftentimes the CIA and JSOC, Joint Operations Command, who are killing these people, don't even know their names, don't know who they are. These are strikes called signature strikes based off of patterns of life, whether you communicated with someone who the CIA thinks is a terrorist, you live in a certain area where the CIA thinks there are lots of terrorists, you're a man between the ages of 16 and 50 maybe. So this is actually happening right now, where our government is using, again, giant metadata sets along with other, information derived from satellites, drones, surveillance drones, to select people to kill with flying robots. And this is happening in Yemen and Pakistan, in Somalia, maybe other places in the world as well. So these are very serious life and death questions for some people. It's not simply about, shooting crop images of fields and determining crop patterns and things like that, although those are certainly also things that you can do with drones. So just very quickly, I want to talk a little bit about how we can address the problem of drone surveillance in the United States. Somebody in a prior talk was saying how Washington responds relatively slowly. The law creeps as opposed to technology, which develops very rapidly, doesn't have the same sort of restraints. And now we're living in a world in which police departments are increasingly going to be acquiring surveillance drones. I'm not going to get into so much the issue today of commercial applications for drones, in part because at the ACLU we actually have a little bit of a conundrum, I'm comfortable saying out loud. There are two amendments in the Bill of Rights that are particularly important to us at the ACLU. I'm sure you can guess what they are, the first and the fourth. The first, obviously, guarantees a right to a free press as well as a right to free speech. And the fourth guarantees us a right to privacy from unwarranted government intrusion into our lives. So these amendments actually conflict a lot, and increasingly they butt up against each other in the realm of big data and technologies like surveillance drones. So one perfect example of that is a court case that has just been filed, I forget, oh, it's in Connecticut actually, where a journalist brought a hobbyist drone to a car accident and popped it up in the sky and was shooting and standing pretty far away so that he wasn't bothering the cops and the firefighters who were dealing with the accident. And the cops noticed the drone in the sky, didn't like it, saw the guy 50 feet away, walked over to him and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm a journalist, I'm filming the accident scene with my drone." And they said, "No, you're not," and they arrested him. Now he's suing the police under a First Amendment claim, saying that he has the First Amendment right to collect this newsworthy information. That's a relatively simple example, I think, and I think the ACLU would pretty easily come down on the side of the journalist in that question. But there are a lot of circumstances in which that scenario is much more complicated, frankly, because the privacy interest butts up against the First Amendment interest. So that to the side, because that really is a very complicated question, I'll just tell you that there are some ways in which we can address this problem in terms of the government using drones that are very easy, actually. We think they're relatively easy answers. The first one is that the police should not be flying drones for criminal intelligence purposes, or frankly any intelligence purposes, without a probable cause backed warrant from a judge. Emergency situations are completely different. If there is a fire, someone's trapped in a building, there's a hostage situation, by all means, police should be able to use drones in those circumstances. But if it's for a routine criminal investigation, they're going after a drug dealer or something, we believe that they should absolutely be required to go to a judge and get a warrant in order to use this highly invasive surveillance technology. Some people have said, particularly people within the military-industrial complex who want to sell these drones to cops, that this is a ridiculous distinction that the ACLU and other privacy groups are drawing between drones and helicopters, for example, which under long-term or sort of old Supreme Court precedent can conduct aerial surveillance without warrants. Excuse me. But we believe that it's not very difficult to understand why helicopter surveillance and drone surveillance are really quite different. It's like comparing apples and oranges. Helicopters, as I'm sure you know, for example, wouldn't fit in this room. You couldn't fly one through the door. You certainly couldn't afford one, probably, most of the people in this room. It's a completely different ballgame. Helicopters make a hell of a lot of noise. It's pretty much impossible to not know that a helicopter is looking at you if it's looking at you. The same is not true with drones at all. It's absolutely the case that drones can, in fact, I believe here at MIT, there are people who are working on shape-shifting drones that basically are like jellyfish, so they can come under your door and then pop up in the shape of like, I don't know, SpongeBob SquarePants or something.
Can we give us a speaker mic?
So clearly helicopters and drones are not the same. I think that that's a really facetious and dishonest argument. So anyway, why do we need privacy from law enforcement drone surveillance? Well, you know, in a very basic sense, knowledge is power, right? And in a democracy, we at the ACLU believe that it's extremely important that citizens in a democracy can maintain their individual privacy, dignity, integrity of their personhood without the government infringing on that right, unless they have a damn good reason and they go to a judge and they get a warrant. Knowledge is power. When the government has incredible amounts of information and the power to collect that information with no due process, no specific individualized suspicion of criminal activity, the government has too much power, frankly. It has too much power to invade in our personal lives. It has too much power to control us. And we believe that's illegitimate. So again, a warrant requirement for criminal intelligence drone surveillance, and flatly a ban on the weaponization of any kind of aerial, unmanned aerial vehicle. You know, Rand Paul, sorry, who is, has been relatively outspoken on the issue of at least using drones to kill U.S. citizens without due process, has said something the other day or a couple months ago to the effect of, yeah, you know, I don't mind if law enforcement wants to use a drone to shoot somebody who has just robbed a convenience store. You know, they would shoot him with a gun. I don't care if they shoot him with a drone, something to this effect. This is not a road that we want to go down. I think it's pretty clear that we don't want law enforcement using drones from a bunker somewhere far away to zap people with tasers, fire beanbag pellets at them, shoot them with live ammunition. You know, the dystopian scenarios are far too grave. So that said, I would encourage technologists who are interested in expanding the application of drones for commercial purposes, even those of you who want to work with law enforcement and domestic intelligence organizations, I would encourage you not to be afraid of common sense regulation. Look, we are not crazy anti-technology radicals who want to strip, you know, every law enforcement agency in the country of their ability to use this technology to help people. All we want to make sure is that police are not using them inappropriately, and we think that the Bill of Rights is a pretty good framework for that, so we should just bring it into the 21st century. Thanks.
So a couple of things. Firstly, I believe that Rand Paul also tweeted in favor of the beer delivery. He thought that was a pass.
So, it's not a very politically challenging position.
Right. He probably thought it was a big vote. Yeah. The other thing is that Kade is doing a session this afternoon about privacy. Check your agenda. And by the way, if you don't have an agenda, we printed out some additional ones. Are they down at the registration? So they're down at the registration. So if you didn't happen to get one, you can get down there, and that has the important room numbers on it. What I wanted to do was, Paul, unfortunately, came down ill yesterday afternoon and couldn't make it, but on his deathbed and using drugs, managed to put together this short video. So what I propose to do, since we are running late and it's lunchtime next, I'm going to show this video, and then you know, the speakers are going to be here, so those of you who want to ask us questions are welcome to come down and talk to us. Otherwise, the lunch will be served. Do you want to say anything more?
Just very quickly, numbers 1 through 25, on your decals, you get a special prize. Go down to the registration desk in the next 15 minutes after the talk is done. And the food is across the way, so people can get their food and bring it into the room. In the spirit of the policing and all that kind of stuff you just heard about law enforcement, people have a lot of valuable equipment here. There's no control whatsoever, apart from the fact that people do have badges identified and things like that. Apart from the fact that you can spill your orange juice on your keyboard, you own your electronics, take good care of it. And across, one last thing, across from the food, there's a wall where you can jot down on the paper what IoT means to me, and would love to have your input on it. Thank you.
Could we turn the lights down? And I would just like to thank again Yannick and Kade for speaking today, and hopefully this works.
My name is Paul Antico, and I'm a filmmaker. Everyone really would like to fly, to soar above the landscape, to see things that we don't normally see. Perspectives, angles, light different from the ground. And that's what the new breed of drones allows you to do. Get a bird's eye view or higher. Establish that shot of your character driving down the street or flying over a school. The new connected nature of drones lets you program in waypoints and fly beyond visual range. You can establish the world from a whole new perspective and see things in a whole different way. Up, up, up we go, seeing life down below. But there are limits. It's all experimental. I'm discovering and learning what's possible with this new technology. The Phantom from DJI, including a gimbal, a GoPro. That creative shot you see here costs no more than $2,000, and that's everything all in. To show your friends and your family the world from a new perspective. I suppose the question of the day is, what visions will we see from the sky? And where can we go next?
So,